Welcome to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. My guest today is likely known to you if you are a U.S.-based designer. Wendy Glaister is here with us. If you do know Wendy, probably just like me, you know Wendy as a very sweet, truly kind, and cheerful lady who always has a ready smile for you when you catch up with her at an industry event. Wendy, in fact, has $1 million smile that quite literally lights up a room. And don't worry, I'm not here to tell you that that's all a facade, not at all. Wendy is exactly as you imagine her to be. But just as we often learn, everyone's life isn't always unicorns and roses, just like my friend Judith Neary says. In our conversation today, Wendy decided to share something with me and ultimately, obviously, with you too. It will surprise you, but my bet is, like it did for me, it will make you appreciate her smile and her warm heart even more. Wendy Glaister Interiors is located in Modesto, California, and her website says that she builds her relationships with her clients based on keenly listening to them, as well as her vendors and contractors. Wendy is currently serving as president of the Central Californian Nevada chapter of ASID. And I have to tell you, if you ever have the chance to see her speak in person, don't miss that opportunity. But for today, let me introduce Wendy to you through the podcast. Hi, Wendy. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Luann, thank you so much for having me join you. It's a real treat.
Treat for me too, Wendy. I've enjoyed getting to know you these last couple of years. We met the first time at the Design Bloggers Conference back in LA, right? 2 years ago.
That's right. That's right.
I know.
And a lot of fun.
Yeah. And now it's called the Design Influencers Conference, right? Which sort of makes a little more sense, right?
It does. And I think this year they're doing it in Atlanta. So a change of venue will be a fun thing to go visit all of our friends that we met there before. It'll be a nice getaway, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, it is. It's fun. It's funny. It's funny when conferences go to the same place year after year. There's a certain level of something that's nice about that, but I prefer the traveling ones. I like to be able to mix my new adventures and new cities experiences with the conferences I go to, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So, Wendy, we're finally getting to having a proper interview, you and I. And it's always interesting for me when I sort of know somebody, right? So we sort of know each other. We've seen each other at multiple places now in Las Vegas Market and High Point Market. And so there's a friendship there. But what happens is when I'm ready to interview you, well, now I got to do the deep dive, right? Now I got to actually look at the website and read whatever you might have written on your website, if you've got any blog posts or things like that. And then I try to understand things about you that maybe didn't come up in casual conversation. And so there's two things that I found out about you that I didn't know. Number one is that you're president of the Central Californian Nevada chapter of ASID. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a big part of why I went back to school when I started along this interior design leg of my life, because I really, really wanted to be a member of ASID. And now I'm the president of the region. I'm kind of in shock.
So that's interesting. So now I've just learned something else about you, that not only are you president, but it was sort of a little dream to actually even be a member, and to be a president is making you pinch a little, it sounds like.
Yes. Well, when I was a kid growing up, the top designers in our area were all ASID designers. So that meant you knew your stuff, you did beautiful work, you you'd done your due diligence in life and you were, the whole gold star approved designer. And that was so glamorous to me as a little girl. So I think I went back to school 7 years ago, and for the reason of wanting that designation and being able to say, I have this experience education. And so, yeah, I'm very grateful to be there. And the people in the region are great. We're doing a lot of new things, and there's a lot of great energy, and it's just fun. The team is so nice to work with. So we're all having a great time.
That's awesome. I'm so happy for you on both levels. I'm happy that you reached a goal for yourself, and I'm happy that you have a nice family there at that chapter. So it's important. It's important to feel connected and to feel like you're all looking for and trying to create the same things, right?
Absolutely. It's good to have the same goals in common. So we're all driving the bus in the same direction.
Exactly. Because we all know we've been part of organizations where there was one bus driver at the front and one at the back. And we're like, people, let's get focused.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So, and the other thing, Wendy, that I thought was interesting when I looked at your website and I went through it, I have, of course, over these last 3 years in podcasting, come across interior designers who have affinities and affiliations with different philanthropic organizations and different organizations that they patronize and that they are trying to help. But you actually have three separate organizations that, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's very clear that this is a front and center mission of your interior design firm to be involved and giving back to your community, because it's not just an afterthought at the bottom. And by the way, 1% of your purchases, you really are putting it forward that you are involved in these different organizations. And I just thought, it obviously is very important to you. Do you want to share with us these different organizations that you're trying to do and trying to influence and help?
Well, I think on the community page, it says something like blessed to do what we do. And, who really gets to grow up and be a luxury interior designer? It's like when you're little and you say, I want to be a movie star someday, or I want to be an interior designer. It's that aspirational career. And we've just been so fortunate to have the clients that we have and do the level of projects that we do. And I didn't always know that would be possible in my life. And so I feel like because I have experienced these blessings and I get to live in that every day, I want to give back so that other people will have the chance to do that someday. So those three organizations, there's one called Cricket's Hope, and it does art therapy for children who've been victims of trauma, and specifically sexual violence, domestic violence, or human trafficking. And it's really neat because these different art projects really do work as therapy, and they get to go to a camp every summer and just heal really in a really safe environment. The other is I like to do these little care boxes for the Women's Haven Center. They say after you've been through something traumatic that you should kind of rewire your senses, your 5 senses. So every once in a while we put together a beautiful box with things that address all 5 senses: touch, taste, smell, blah, blah. And we give those to the Haven Center and then we just kind of ask the gal who runs all these recovery groups to just sort of, I don't know, by divine inspiration, she'll be directed to give it to someone and, blesses them and helps them start that healing process. And then this year I started a foundation called the Genesis 5020 Foundation, and that is very, very specific. It's to allow mothers who are victims of domestic violence to get PTSD therapy called EMDR so that they can heal from their traumatic experience and go forward making better, clear decisions, because the fear that trapped them in that domestic violence situation no longer has power. It's really amazing. It evaporates the fear. completely transformational. So anyway, we're just finishing that up, getting all the little parts and pieces of that foundation put together so that we can start funding these scholarships so that mothers can recover faster and do better for themselves and their children. So those are the 3 little things on community on my website.
It's a big commitment. I mean, I can hear it in you that it's important to you, and that you've taken the time to understand it and to see the value in it. What does Genesis 50:20 mean? Is that a verse in the Bible?
It is.
Okay.
So I know, well, I was in this Bible study during kind of this difficult time of life. And this particular verse references when Joseph, who had been sold into slavery by his brothers, ended up running the entire country of Egypt and most of the Middle East, right under Pharaoh. And there was a famine in the land and people were dying. So people from Israel would make a pilgrimage to Egypt to try to, get grain so they wouldn't starve, so their families would not starve. So Joseph's brothers made that pilgrimage, ended up in front of Joseph, realized who he was, and thought they were all going to be killed. And he looked at them and said, "You intended that for evil, but God intended it for good, for the saving of many lives." And I just think that's so profound, because Joseph could see this awful experience and years of suffering as an opportunity to bless people and to save people. And that was his first concern, not revenge. And I just think, I don't know, I think if people could do that more, it'd be a lot easier to live here together. And not that
Amen
I have
to
the
that,
forgiveness
right?
part down, but yeah, I mean, it was just such a profound verse to me, because, people can intend all kinds of evil, but we don't have to let it stop there. We can use it for the saving of many lives. And I just think that's a great way to turn that around. So
I'm not sure where to go with this, Wendy. I mean, it's I'm thinking this is going to move into an Oprah Super Soul Sunday type of episode now.
No, I mean, it's definitely, it is, when you look at the 3 and you hear me explain, you think, oh, well, where does that come from? I mean, you have to be hit on the head by a 2x4 not to know that I was intimately connected to making sure that people are okay and can recover and rewire and heal. And it's, I guess in a sense, gosh, I'm not Joseph. We all would love to be someone like that, but I've had, some challenges like everyone does. And mine was in the area of domestic violence, and it was profound. And, so this will be the first time I ever publicly talk about it.
Wow. Okay.
But I just don't want, I think the thing that kept me there was I was ashamed. And, I was like a national level debater in high school. I went away to school on a debate scholarship.
Wow.
I have trophies. Like, my parents won't throw them away. They're in the attic. I was a very powerful, self-assured, well-spoken young lady, and wound up just devastated. And with my son, and I had to make some really difficult choices, and it's been a long, long road, but thank God. We've just been so blessed. And just 5 years ago, this Christmas, I was remarried, and Mark, my husband, is wonderful to me and wonderful to Jacob. And we were really safe and loved. And I have energy and time and space to try to give back so that other women who were where I was can be encouraged and benefit from the blessings that I've been given, because I just don't think it's fair to hoard that. That's not fair.
Wow.
It's much more fun if you can do something for someone else. So that's how I've kind of came to those things.
That's amazing.
Well, I don't know.
No, really, Wendy, because you know what? First of all, to to just say it, right, and to share it with all of us takes a lot of courage. So thank you for doing that and sharing that with us. But the second thing is that it's one thing to come through something like that. I can't even begin to imagine the strength and the courage and the sheer effort that it must be to come through something like that. But then to keep going and to now decide that you are going to be somebody that helps other people come through it and possibly avoid it, I imagine, and that's what will come from your conversations, I'm sure. But that's another layer of commitment. It's another layer of it, not just being self-preserving, which I'm sure there was a component of that, but to now give back, right?
Right. Well, I don't know. I just want it to mean more than just I got out. To me, that's not enough. I need to help other people not feel ashamed, get out, learn, from what I had to figure out, like, what are the therapies that help? How can you take care of yourself? Because so that you don't fall apart more than you've already fallen apart. How do you protect your child? How do you get them the help they need? There's just a lot. There's so much that goes into taking care of people who've just been kind of, I don't know. I mean, the best way I know how to explain it is it's like your heart is turned into carne asada. But your heart, but it's not just your heart. It's like your perception of yourself, your ability to perform in the world, your whole self-identity is like little strip by little strip destroyed. And to build that back up and become a functioning person in the world takes a lot of work. Wow. So it's nice if you can look at someone who's done the work and say, oh, if she can do it, I can do it. Or she found this neat thing and that helped her son, and maybe this would help my son. And, it just, plus, I think everybody who's been in, situations like this, and then they decide they want to talk about it, it's just less scary and there's less shame. I think shame and silence make people persist the icky, evil things that it's like perpetuates those things. And if you talk about it and you're honest, then the power just goes away out of all of that. And then people can feel safe to express how they feel or what they're going through and what their needs are. And I don't know. I ended up in I never thought I would ever be in a place like this, but in our town, we have something called the Stanislaus Family Justice Center and the Haven and the district attorney and a lot of other public agencies are all housed in this same building. So I wound up there because I had a very good friend who runs this trauma art group say, you really need to go to group therapy. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not going to go to group. Who are you talking to? I am fine. This is no problem. She's like, no, you got to go. So it was so interesting because on the very first day, they passed out, I remember it was in January, and they passed out all of this clinical information, psychiatry, psychology, studies, etc., about that abusive personality and what they do and how they, weave their evil web or whatever you want to call it. Right. And it was just all there in black and white. Wow. And I looked at the lady who ran the group, Jeanette Garcia, God bless her. And I said, this is a whole area of science?
Wow.
She said, yes, Wendy. I said, I just thought I was a really bad wife and I could never make him happy.
Whoa.
And she said, oh, no.
Like it was not possible to make him happy because he's wired wrong, right?
Well, no, I thought I was wired
right.
wrong.
No, that's what I'm saying. That was your aha moment that you took it on you. But the science is saying that he's wired wrong, that you could have tried day after day after day after day.
It would never work.
No,
that's
and
right.
in doing that, it brought you down and stripped you away day after day, you mistakenly believing that the problem was within you as opposed to on him or within him.
Yes, which I mean, you don't want to ever believe people are really just awful people. But they are. Come to find out.
Look at you being surprised at that.
Number one. Yes, there really are people in the world that grow up thinking that everyone is sweet and nice and no one will ever hurt you. And that is a lie. And the sooner you can correct that in your heart and in your head, the better off you'll be.
Whoa. Check that out. That is so good.
Yeah. It's not good to enter the grown-up world naive or ignorant of the ways of the world. I do not advise it for anyone.
Right. And do you think, Wendy, is it two things? Do you think that it was... I'm going to ask this. Do you think that part of your healing came from understanding what it was, what existed in your personality, like a facet of that, of really just in your heart believing that there is no such thing as a person who is not good, and so therefore it must be in me? Do you and so was it part of your healing to recognize, because you said that you were a self-assured, powerful speaker, a young woman, out in college and on scholarship? There's a lot of pluses there that build up somebody's self-esteem in that. Not everybody succeeds in any of those things, let alone all of those things. So is it a requirement, do you think, to go back and figure out what was the glitch that enabled somebody to convince you that you were the problem?
Yes. Many thousands of dollars worth of therapy later, I learned that, all of us, I think we're raising our kids differently, but so many of us were raised to be nice, to make people happy, to have a persona of perfection, and then not to disrupt the apple cart, not to articulate ideas that would be upsetting to others. And that's kind of like the perfect storm for being the target of a personality like my son's father is. And so it's, it's like almost like the universe, unfortunately puts these two personalities together. So he might have run up against somebody else that may or may not have as much ingrained of these traits and could have had never
a different
try
outcome.
that hard.
Right. Would have been like, you know what, you're out of here.
Show him the door. Yeah. Real quick. No, not me.
Wow. Wow. And so, but then we have a whole nother layer. You mentioned it 2 times in there. And it's not just about finding clarity for yourself and finding a path to healing. And Wendy, you're remarkable because you're able to laugh, you're able to express joy, you're able to give back. So I have no idea how far along the path you are, but you sound like you're there to me. But it sounds like to me, though, that the other difficult thing, not only getting all of this together for yourself, but you have a son that went through some layer, or maybe all of it as well. I don't know if he was part of of also being abused, or just a witness to it, or just the byproduct of having a mother who was being abused. But that's a big responsibility. You can't just put your head in the hole and say, I can't deal, because you have to save him too, right?
Yes. It's funny that you mentioned that. When I had to leave, my parents were very gracious and they let us stay in their home. So we got out in a day. My friends came, unloaded the house. We moved into my mother and father's house. Wow. And I was in interior design school. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table and I looked at my dad and said, in tears, I was a wreck. Daddy, I am a horrible mother. I am not going to be a teacher or a nurse or something stable. I'm going to be an interior designer. I should get it together. And he was a jeweler. My parents ran a beautiful luxury designer jewelry store. My dad would make the jewelry and my mom ran the business. So I had this model of how it worked, but I just didn't have the confidence. And Daddy said, no, Wendy, you're so talented. This is going to be great. Just you wait. Don't worry. And I looked at Jacob. He was sitting there in the little window bench in their kitchen. And he goes, Mommy, it's going to be okay. You're my mom.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
If that's not motivation, I don't know what is. I would rather die than let Jacob down. I mean, I would do anything. And I know all the other moms, so that's just, they're your person. I mean, and
I have
that
goosebumps.
was very motivating. That was very motivating.
Well,
it's motivating today. I mean, that will never go away.
Right. And I'm so happy for you that that conversation turned that way, because it's clear, Wendy, that you're supposed to be an interior designer. Your portfolio is amazing. You're so talented. You really, really are. And to have that not come into the world would have been a sin. Okay. I mean, that's just the truth of it. Okay. That's the truth of it. But to think that there's these two people and they both reinforce and backed you up. Your father, look, despite coming from a creative field and despite being successful in that, he could have said to you, kid, I love you, and I wish you could be an interior designer, but you're right. You need to go get something with benefits and a steady job because you got a kid and you can't live here forever with me and your mom.
Right. I love you, but there are limits.
That's it, right? And so right. He looks at you and believes in you. And then your little boy, Jacob, he just gives you the high five and says, you're my mom. You got this. I love it. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. But I think that's why, I don't know, it's like a compulsion to do well. And it's a compulsion to help people, because I don't think it's fair to quit, because then it's like you're quitting on people who kind of need you. I really believe that God has done so much for Jacob and me. It's astounding. I mean, the business has grown 100% year over year for 3 years. Wow. I really think that that's because Jake and I are stable. We have Mark. We have a cozy, happy, safe home. So I can be creative and I can work on business, and be inspired for the first time. And but I just don't think it's fair to leave people who don't get to have that yet, in wherever they are. It just doesn't seem fair. I don't know.
Interesting. And is that because was there somebody that was outside of this that was the catalyst for you leaving? Was it, you know what I'm saying? Is that the connection, that there was some catalyst that, or that's not?
Well, honestly, I think that's kind of hard.
In other words, an inspiration, like somebody listening to this could be Wendy going through this right now. Honest to God, right. The chances are very, very high, quite frankly, that somebody is experiencing something similar or as devastating or whatever, and is listening to you now and saying, you know what, that's it, line in the sand. I'm done.
Well, honestly, I think God gifted me Jacob for many reasons, but part of it is, I mean, I don't think I would do for myself what I would do for Jake. And it got to the point where the criticism at home was pretty intense for him, and it changed his behavior at school. And his teacher shared that with me, and I went home and chatted with him about it, and he shared some very
disturbing.
Yes, thank you. Thoughts. So I called my pastor, and I said, this is going on with Jacob. This happened at school. I knew it was bad, and I had kind of started moving little things out of the house months before. But, I don't know. I mean, in some traditions of faith, you're supposed to pray until they change. Well, you cannot pray somebody kind. Either they have a heart for God or they don't.
You cannot.
So the pastor, actually, I give him a lot of credit. He said, Wendy, I am a mandated reporter, and if you do not have Jacob out of that house by Monday morning, I will be calling Child Protective Services.
Okay. Well,
because
that's a motivation right there.
Yeah. And I really appreciate it. That was the right thing to say. And I did. I moved on it. But that guy was gutsy. And that's not the experience that I had in church leadership up until then. It was more, well, you must not be praying hard enough, and you must not be giving this over to God enough, or baloney.
Oh my God, that's horrible. That's horrible. That's horrible. But it happens. You absolutely do know it happens.
It does. And that's why I think, in a way, that's why I named that foundation the Genesis 50/20 Foundation, because I want people in the church who shame women who can't pray their husbands nice to understand that I see them and they had better keep their mouth shut.
You go, girl.
Because it's just wrong. I mean, that's abusive too. You can't do that to people.
No, it's a second layer of abuse, and it's also and the unfortunate and tragic part of it is it's a person who's already been rocked, and their world and confidence is rocked, and then you lay that crap on there. You'll get me crazy now if I start talking like that, and then nobody will ever listen to my podcast again. I'll tell you right now.
We'll save that for some aftermarket little conversation over chamomile tea, so we don't get too wacky.
Oh my goodness. I understand that huge motivation to save your son, that what you wouldn't do for yourself, you would do for your son. I mean, any of us that has had a child can relate to that and really feel that at a visceral level. It's one thing to not, to go without or do without or not have what you want, but you will fight tooth and nail to make sure that your kid has a good life and the life that they're born entitled to have. And it doesn't include that layer of crap, right?
No, and in the process, it makes you a much stronger person and a better person in the long run, and a better friend, a better business owner, because you know what it's like to be able to stand back and assess, what does this person that I really care about need right now? Oh, I'm sorry. But anyway, it's just, from that point on, it's never just about you. I mean, you're just not going to be, if you were selfish before, it's going to be dialed down quite a bit, because it's a transformational thing, being given the gift of a child to love. And I never want, at the end of my life, when I have to meet God, him say, wow, you kind of dropped the ball on that kid. I would rather die 1,000 deaths than have that. Yeah. Right. And I mean, I know I failed. All parents fail, all parents,
of course, moments,
but at least in the moment, I want to try to do what I can. He's just had a real hard time. I mean, the stress of that and going back and forth, he's had chronic intractable migraines, and we've been to neurologists and pediatricians and allergists and acupuncturists and chiropractors and worked on diet and exercise. And it's totally emotionally related migraine. And it's better now. I mean, he's 18, and so he's, his own dude, and he gets to make decisions about the time he spends and all of that. But just to watch suffering is, I don't know. I don't watch the suffering of anyone very well, but especially not Jacob.
Right, of course. So, absolutely. Yeah. It's like your own pain and suffering. It's worse because you feel helpless. You can't do anything about it, or you're trying to, and it's maybe working or not working. That's the crazy part. Yeah, no. And I have to say, Wendy, you mentioned a couple of times how fortunate and how lucky you feel and how blessed you feel to have the life that you have now. And in one of the lines that you mentioned, how your business has grown 100% year after year, each year it has grown 100%. And after you said that, you said, because I feel like we have a safe place to be and to do, and to live and to breathe, I don't know exact words, but you said because we have a safe place to be now and you can work on your business. I think you said something to that effect. And I think that's so powerful because it really does put in perspective to others of us that have not been through what you've been through, that for you to be working on your business and to have this, so we can have a really busy, hard day, and we can have a really busy life, and our client cannot be so fabulous, and the vendor can drop the ball, and the tile can come in the wrong die lot, and all kinds of crazy things happen. But I getting a sense that when that happens in your day, you're like, right, but my life isn't in danger on this day, and my son is safe, right?
Well, it does put things in perspective.
I mean, really.
Yeah, and I think no, that's neat that you bring that up, because that really is true. I mean, there are times I get frustrated
when you talk about it. That's what I'm hearing, that you have this little like, yeah, it's okay, I'm safe.
And I also think it's given me a lot more compassion for other people. I mean, they may not have been in the same the same kind of suffering that we were in, but everyone has something in their life. And so I think I'm much more compassionate now as a designer, having gone through that, than I would have been any other way. So there's a tolerance there too. And, it could be much worse. There's a neat gal, Terry Taylor. She always says, no one ever died of sofa. Like, oh my gosh, she's so right. That's so funny. But the other thing is, like, when you're in survival mode, you can't listen to A Well-Designed Business with Luann Nigara, because you just have to figure out how to finish that day.
Yes.
And so it was neat, because when I started listening to you, I think I was married to Mark for a year and a half. And so I was just kind of it takes a long time to realize, oh, this really is safe. It's not going to be ripped out from under me.
To trust it, right? To really know it's real.
And then I started listening to your podcast, and I thought, oh, I bet I could get an assistant and help me. Oh, I bet I could do this or that or the other. And I could try my Doma, and I could try a Maria Killam, and I could try Carol Cox. And, because you live in this, because it's so embarrassing and sort of shameful, you do live in this itsy bitsy world, and the friends that you have are always at arm's length because you're embarrassed, and it's just like, who wants to hear that? And so you're just so guarded, and it's like this vigilance, and so when all of those walls started coming down, and I just happened to find your podcast, I was so excited, because I thought, oh my gosh, I've been in this kind of like a solarium, I guess.
Right,
and
like a little glass ball.
Yeah, exactly. And now I can like breathe, and there's sunshine and fresh air, and I can learn these things. And I got to hear people who went before me, who figured things out, who were kind enough to share. And you were great at extracting that. And so it was like, oh, wow. And it was neat, because it led me to asking Brenda to work with me. And she was my professor in design school. And, that's totally transformed my business, because I'm not alone. I'm not in a vacuum. We share the same faith. We pray about our jobs. We have a great time together. Our values are the same. The clients trust her. I trust her with them. I mean, it's totally different now. It's fun, because, we go to the market together, and we just went to Boston to speak at Fall Design Week with Debbie Daly. And it's just a totally different life. And I'm just so grateful.
Wow. It's amazing. It's really remarkable. And I guess, Wendy, you must know that there have to be people that, in other words, I want to compliment you. I want to compliment you on what you've come through. I want to compliment you on the way you've come through it. And I want to compliment you on what you've created on the aftermath of it. And then ultimately, I want to compliment you on that you're still a happy, upbeat, optimistic, caring person, right? I mean, seriously. And I don't want you to take it, I don't want you to underestimate it, because I know that you must know, with the work that you do, that there are people that come through and keep the wounds of it and keep the pain of it. Not that I think it's easy to shed it. I don't go there at all. But that's my point, is to compliment you on what you have done, because it's got to be impossible to do it, and insurmountable at times to feel like, to be able to do it.
Well, full disclosure, I do boxing for I
There may or may not be a picture on that boxing bag.
I do it with my trainer, and it's so much fun. It releases so much. And I mean, it'd be a lie to tell you that, oh yeah,
It's
I
all
am
easy.
so awesome.
Yeah.
No. I mean, there's a lot. You have to keep it in check, but I just feel like Jacob and I really are blessed. I mean, I feel like it'd be a slap in the face to the creator of the universe if I said, well, thanks for getting me out, but I'm still kind of chapped about my experience. So what do you got for me now?
Right.
No, no. I just want other people to understand that he sees them and loves them and they aren't alone. And I want other people to know that, I mean, in my deepest, darkest moments, especially through mediation, which is a killer, trying to protect your child in the courts is a, oh my God.
True. It's so true. It's so exasperating, isn't it?
Well, yeah. And I just wanted, so I had this cross that my dad made me when I was in high school, and it was in safety deposit box, and I couldn't get there before the mediation because I was so busy or something happened. So I was so disappointed. So I went to this art therapy thing with my friend to help the little kids because Jacob was with his dad and I had to stay busy or I would fall apart. I mean, every time he left, it was like hours evaporated because I was in despair. I can't explain it. It was awful. But anyway, so this man had just come back and he was at this art therapy group, and he'd come back from Israel and he had these tiny little crosses made of olive wood. And he passed them out to everyone, and I got one too. And I got to wear it into court the next day under my little sweater. And it was like, I felt like God knew I needed that. I needed that cross. I couldn't get the one that I thought I needed, but he showed up for me and made sure I had one. I mean, little things where you think that you don't even share with anyone, needs that are met. And I mean, when you acknowledge being seen like that by God and having him care for you in such a teeny tiny but wildly intimate way, wow. I mean, you should get excited about that.
I love
So,
you.
who cares about if you have a telephone to heaven? Heck no. I can just think it, wish it, pray it in my heart, and he knows, and things show up. You know, I think, but you have to want to see that. You have to.
You know, I was just going to say to you, I was listening to you talk and tell the story, and I was going to say to you, but Wendy, you have to have your eyes open and be willing to accept and appreciate that it was the message sent for you. That's the truth, because that is your part in that. You see, whatever religion you are or you're not, you know, I mean, there are things that happen, synchronicities, the universe sends us messages, whatever way you want to describe it. But the fact of the matter is you have to have your eyes open for it, and you have to be willing to accept it for what it is to you at that moment, as opposed to poo-pooing it and pushing it off and ignoring the inner voice that tells you that day, your inner voice told you that God gave this to you. And see, and that gave you the courage and the strength to go through that day that you were facing. And it's just, that's your part in it, Wendy. You're a remarkable human being. You really are. And it just shows, you know, it just shows you that you have no idea what's happening behind somebody's eyeballs. You know, we meet all these people at High Point Market, at Las Vegas Market, and we laugh and we have such a good time and we make connections, and we really genuinely do meet each other and have conversations, but you just don't always know what's happening to the other person, right?
No, I think it's safe to assume that everybody has something. So everyone needs a little extra compassion and a little extra warmth and a little extra concern, because it's true. I mean, we don't have any idea, and we could be the only person who interacts with them that day that gives them encouragement or a smile or just grace. Just to, you know, and that everybody needs that, especially now. It's okay to be kind.
It's okay to be kind. Darn it.
Kind, see where you can help. You know, I don't know. I just think you live a teeny tiny life. You know, the people who act like the man I was married to, you know, he gave me this wedding ring and it's in this little tiny box, and he's so scared of losing this power. And he's so scared of losing this control and this and that and the other. He will live in that tiny box forever.
Yes, he will. Yeah.
And I don't want to live in a little box. Don't consign me to a little box. I'm an interior designer. I want to build pretty houses. Don't put me in a teeny tiny box.
Look at
and don't
you.
put other people in a teeny tiny box. You know, it's just when you're so angry and you fight with people and you have to get your point across and you don't know how to listen respectfully and you don't have compassion, that puts you in a teeny tiny box. And it's so sad because there's a big wide world out there of all kinds of wonderful people and experiences and history and art and culture and music. And if you're so worried about protecting this teeny tiny, you know, I don't know, like property line, what are you going to get? You're going to see nothing.
Right,
you know, it's
right.
so, and it's tragic because everyone has something to give, but if they are just allow themselves to be trapped that way, then that gift kind of evaporates.
Right.
Sad.
Amazing. I love it. I think I can't thank you enough for being so open and vulnerable and sharing this with us. And I think that it's
really
just powerful. It is.
I don't know. You're just very kind to everyone that you interview. And, you know, I've been listening to you since you started. So I feel like it's easy to talk to you because it's just you and I on the phone. Like if you had me up in front of, I don't know how that would
you're
go.
up in front of several thousand right now. I hate to tell you.
I'm just talking to a kind person that I've learned to love her voice and to trust her advice. And so it's easy. But yeah, I mean, I just, you've made it easy to explain some of these things that are really, really kind of hard to explain, kind of embarrassing, and certainly something that not everyone can relate to. And there is a real stigma, and I get it, but I'm kind of over it too because I don't really care.
Good for you. Well, you know now. I know you know now. There's absolutely nothing for you to be embarrassed or shamed by. But I understand that it's a journey to get to there. I don't negate that, and I don't make light of that. But what you have done today, Wendy, is really shared something very powerful. And I'm 100% certain that you are probably going to hear from people who are at all different levels on their journey, and that you've helped them. And I just wonder, I have to say, do we take 10 minutes and find out how you've tripled, 100% your income each year? Or do we just say the heck with it? We've had our Super Soul Sunday and we're good.
I'm having to explain how that happens. So the first thing is you clean up your life at home so that you can focus.
Okay.
The second thing is you turn on a well-designed business with Era. The third thing is you take her advice. The fourth thing is don't be afraid to sell furniture and accessories. It's not as scary as you think. If you really hate it, then listen to the Lori Paranjape interview because she's got it nailed.
Yes.
And I'm starting to do that with a couple really great furniture stores in town. I just love them both, and they're just so generous, and we've had a wonderful time. Hire your college professor because you'll never have to ask, do you know how to do a finished schedule? Do you know how to do this scale drawing? Of course. And that's spectacular. I think because that was a really scary thing. And I think it's scary for a lot of designers. And in the interviews, so many interviews that you've done, people have said, oh, my business really grew when I decided to hire someone. But taking that step is terrifying.
It is.
Especially if you come from a place of scarcity, because I really did. When I was living with my parents, I was going to school and there was no spousal support. There was nothing. I was on Medicaid and food stamps.
Whoa.
Oh. And now I'm hiring my college professor. I mean, talk about, weeks of prayer. Oh, God, help me. Please don't let me let her down. I can't, So, but it's true because she's great at everything I stink at. So I'm not in this swirl of resentment, being trapped doing things that I don't like. So I can think about the other things, and I can keep moving the business forward. Like I can develop the website, I can do the branding, I can interview publicists and land with Bob and Dwayne, who I love and are so sweet and are helping me try to find a way to, I don't know, just be more helpful in the design world. And
Nice. I love it. I love
all
it.
those things, I think a lot of business, don't you think? Did you ever see that Indiana Jones movie where, was it like his dad was with him? I'm so bad at movie names, and they were trying to find like the chalice of life, or
Yes. The Raiders, is that Raiders of the Lost Ark?
is that it? Yeah,
Is
and
that
then
that one?
he
Yeah.
had to step out over this huge like canyon in
Yes.
a cave, and there was no bridge. Doesn't most of our business life kind of feel like that? Like,
Exactly.
oh my
Exactly.
gosh, I'm going to
Yes.
buy all these samples for hundreds of dollars. I guess I'll step out and hope there's a bridge. Oh,
Right.
I'm going to hire my professor. I guess, I hope there's a bridge. Or I'm going to leave my husband and everything I know. I hope there's a bridge. But yeah, you kind of end up having to kind of be comfortable with risk.
Yes. Well, you
And
certainly need to have a certain level of a high level of comfort, I would say, not a high level of comfort, to run a business, of high level comfort of risk, because it is every day. It is a risk. It's just a matter of if you're going to make the decision to rise to the risk or you're going to run from it, and that's what it comes down to, right?
right. And I think it's nice because I also learned from Mark, my husband, and he has his own business. So it's really nice. I really respect him. He's a very hard worker and he's really done something special with his company. But I can take things to him and ask him for his advice. And I really respect his advice. So one time I specified a table for a client. It was a beautiful little console from Hickory Chair. And I knew it was right, but I knew the client was sort of on the fence. And I said, no, we really need to get it. And I got it for her. She agreed and we bought it. And then it was delivered and she said, oh.
Oh.
And I knew when I ordered it, you have that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to those feelings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what are you saying? You didn't ask her to pay for it before you ordered it, but and
Oh,
now.
no, she paid for it before she ordered it and all of that. Definitely, 75% down upon ordering, 25% 2 weeks before delivery. But she's a very, very long time client. We've done her entire home, taken it down to the studs and put it back together again. So it's not like some fly by night gal who
Mm-hmm.
hasn't given us a lot of business. And I was just so sad about it. And Mark said, Wendy, it's not a waste in business if you learn from it.
Right.
Just remember next time when that little voice says, then you listen and you
Right.
don't do it.
Right. Well,
So-
you know what? You're speaking my language now. I say it, and anybody listening that's been coached by me, they know it's exactly one of the big things that I harp on is you already know. You already know the answer. You know where it went wrong. You know what you're supposed to do. You know what you're not supposed to do. And when you ignore that voice, that's when it goes the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened in that I'm not sure I understand the consequence. So what happened was that she approved it, but in your heart, your little voice was telling you that she really wasn't on board with it. Is that what you mean? Like you knew it, but you loved it so much, so you wanted it. And then when it got there, she really didn't like it. And that's when she said, I don't like it.
Well,
Is that is that the dilemma that you were facing? I'm
Yes.
not sure.
yes. So, in design, and I know you know this with window treatments too. So I have reframed people who are very particular. Now I say they're discerning because it's a nicer word. And you don't get as resentful. So she is just one of those gals. And I never should have taken that risk. But it's a good lesson, and I did learn, and now I have a beautiful hickory chair custom console in my dining room because it's custom and it's a certain length and a certain height, and it won't just go anywhere. So it was but the thing about that, two really great things about that, three. One, I learned listen to your intuition, and then it's not a waste. Two, I learned I'm not going to get in trouble if I take a challenge to mark a business challenge and I've chosen wrong. I'm not going to get scolded. I'm not going to be told that I'm stupid or that I can't make anything go right or that how could I have, or I can ask him and it's safe to ask him.
Wow.
And there's no scolding or punishment, or that was so nice. And then thirdly, if you're going to make a mistake, make it on a great piece of furniture that you like.
Oh my goodness. Let me tell you what, that's how, you know what, you don't even recognize how powerful it is that you said that the second thing that you learned is that if you make a mistake and you bring it to Mark, that he's not going to scold you. You know, I mean, that's to think that is a fear that you had and that's ingrained in you and that you are really wiping out that grain. You're leveling that down and beginning and standing in and feeling the trust that someone is sharing with you now. I love that for you, Wendy. I love that.
Thank you. Well, again, I don't know. I think I've said I feel so blessed and grateful about 50 times in this interview.
No, it's true. But it's, you know what, you're attracting it now, right? And the thing is, in your gratitude for it, it's coming back to you over and over again. But that does speak volumes as to the trauma that you've been through, that would have been a thought on your part, right? Big sentence there. So, yeah, but I love how intentional you've been about running your business. You said it kind of tongue in cheek, but it's sort of true. You know, clean up your life, whatever that means for you, right? You need your life in order to be full and whole and happy and bring it to your clients and to it, because it's a hard thing to run a business. It's a really hard thing. And, if there are other hard things that are happening in your life, it's hard to tackle this one with intention. And if your money and your livelihood is on the line, that's a scary thing, right?
It is. I think too, I've known a lot of people who don't really take accountability. They don't own their stuff. And I think if you want to run a business, you really have to be prepared that the buck will stop with you. And you have to be brave. If owning your own business isn't for people who just like to kind of play it safe and, no, I mean, you have to be very, very brave, and you have to be able to take responsibility for everything. And that takes a lot of work in your own personality. And if you're not wired like that, and I don't know, I don't think you would like it really.
I agree. Yeah. I think a lot of times that one of the main things that can throw a business off the rails or never let it get up and running smoothly is the resistance on the part of the business owner to truly take responsibility, whether it's theirs or not. In other words, there are situations where we have discerning clients, where we have ones that are unreasonable, where their expectation or their request or their reaction is unreasonable. But if you are not willing to sit there and take it, own it, and work through to resolution and leave your ego and your agenda off the table. And when I say your agenda, if you need your agenda on the table, and that agenda needs to be, I'm going to come through this and to provide resolution to my client to their satisfaction. If that's not your agenda, if your agenda is, I have to be right, I have to be, they're not going to get over on me, blah, 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 then it's not going to work, because there's just too many times in the course of running a business that we just have to suck it up and move on. And that's the truth of it. You know me, I'm a broken record. Do you want to be right or you want to get what you want?
Oh, I've used that. I've used that with people. Thank you so much for that. You said that. And I think the first time I heard you say that, I thought, oh my gosh, it's true in marriage. It's true.
It's true. It's true in everything. It's mostly true in marriage, by the way.
Do you want to live in a teeny tiny box?
That's right.
Or do you want to have a great, big, pretty life?
Exactly.
So
it's exactly right.
If you right, then you can live in the box.
That's
if you
right.
want to, move forward, then you don't have to.
That's right. For me, it's a very freeing principle to live by, because there are times that I want to be right, darn it. You know what I mean? There are times, but I know that I'm going to put something in jeopardy. I'm either going to put the resolution in jeopardy. I'm going to put a relationship in jeopardy. I'm going to put somebody's feelings in jeopardy. I'm going to put my own position in jeopardy. It's mostly not a good place to be. It really isn't. It's mostly not a good place to be. It's not that you're a perfect human being and you never fight for being right, but the reality is that if, for me, I live by that. It's one of the half a dozen mantras that I live by. And there are a lot of moments that, whether it mostly comes up with customers, but it does come up in personal life too, where Vin and I will be going around and around, and I'll be like, Lou Ann, honestly, what are you doing here? Do you need to be right about this, or what do you want? Do you want both of you back on the same path, on the same, thing together, figuring stuff out? Like, yeah, shut up,
I get tired of the sound of my own voice from time to time.
Yeah. So, and I think that little sentence just helps me get there a whole lot quicker. I just, boom, it's like, boom, turn the corner, as opposed to, 5 hours later, oh yeah, this isn't working out so well.
No, I know. I was kind of sharing that with a friend of mine once, and I said, in high school, I used to get these trophies for being right. It was so satisfying, and it was just like win tournaments and whatever. And now, if I do that to a living human being,
right,
there's no trophy at the end.
No.
There's just a broken person.
There's carnage. Exactly.
Yes, and it's horrible.
It
you
is.
don't want to do that to people.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and where it's funny is I remember one of the first times that I heard something along the line. I have no idea where I came up with the line, I want to be right, or do I want to get what I want? It may have come from the same thing that I'm going to tell you. I don't recall the connection, but I remember 100 years ago watching Dr. Phil on Oprah, of all things. Here we are in our Super Soul episode right here, right? But I was watching Dr. Phil on Oprah, and he was having a conversation. I was young, married then, right? And, when you're young and married, everything is very important. And I remember him talking about when you fight, he goes, if you have a disagreement with a girlfriend, how do you handle it? How do you handle it? Do you try and express it in a way that saves her feelings? Do you try and share your hurt feelings in a way that doesn't put her down? And he goes, and now think about how you handle it with your husband. Like, you go for the jugular. You know what I'm saying? And I remember, and he just looked, he goes, why do you do that with the person that you love most in the world? And I just went, and that was a life-changing moment for me. At that moment, I just stopped going for his jugular. Because I'm pretty good at going for the jugular. I'm very sassy. You know what I'm saying? And I just stopped it.
I was noticing about your personality at all. That's what makes you so fun. But what I like is that you do it, but you're respectful about people, and you caretake their heart. You don't.
Right. I learned that.
And it's so you can still be who you. I think a lot of people will say, "Well, that's just who I am."
Yeah.
Baloney.
No, I learned it. My innate person was very sassy and very direct. I am still, and to your point, I still am all those things. You're exactly right, Wendy. However,
people trust you,
right.
So that means that you've used your gift in a positive way to build a great business and a terrific family. And you've learned how to use your gift to engage other people and get other people excited and to build a tribe around you. So when I don't know, I guess I used to hear this a lot. Well, I'm just that way. Well, I just like intellectual debate and conversation. Well, on and on and on and on and on and on, all the reasons why I am a horrible person. It's just how I am. Baloney. You can be a respectful, kind person, still have wit and sass, and be entertaining and intellectual, and do it in a way that doesn't destroy people.
Right, because you have to come to your moment. Is this a person, whether it's your husband or a new friend that you're meeting, is the respect for them first? And it is, and it should be. And so therefore you're entitled to your opinion, but you need to share it in a nice way. But I think this is awesome, Wendy. I tell you, I've said it. I'm in deep admiration of you as a person, a woman, a mother, a business owner, and guess what? As an interior designer. I think it's so awesome that you have created this life for yourself out of this trauma and tragedy, and you have come through it, and you still have, you still have a heart that accepts love and gives love and sees the best in people. And that's, easy to do when everything is good. But the fact that you've done it through what you've done and come through is even more fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing all of this with us, Wendy. I really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being a safe person to chat with, because in my heart, this has just been between you and me.
Okay, I won't tell you again how many. Oh, thank you so much.
If this can help anybody, of course I want it to. And I just appreciate being given a safe way to kind of start to get my feet wet in what I hope will be something that will really be able to encourage other people. So thank you for being the jumping off point. That means a lot to me.
Oh, I appreciate it, and I acknowledge the honor. Thank you. Not our typical show here, right? But the thing is, everybody, every one of us has something in our lives, something that we're dealing with, or possibly like Wendy, we have in our rearview mirror already. But whatever it is, it changes us. It affects our choices, our thoughts, our motivations. So when you meet up with each other, remember, life is not our Instagram feed. Not at all. Not for any one of us. So if you would like to support Wendy in her mission to provide mothers who are victims of domestic violence the funds they need to obtain the necessary therapy to heal, you can do that through the Haven Women's Center, which is a shelter for women in crisis, Cricket's Hope, an art therapy program for children, and also her recently formed charitable organization, the Genesis 5020 Foundation, which raises and distributes funds for trauma therapy. Her website is WendyGlaisterInteriors.com. I'm sure she would be grateful for your support. That's Wendy, Glaister, Interiors.com. My great thanks to Kravit, My Doma Studio, and Article for their continued support of this podcast. It is because of them and because of past sponsors like Camp Chroma, Cherish, FreshBooks, Revel Woods, Designer Inc., Mix and Match Design Company, and vegandesign.org that we have been able to meet people like Wendy, to hear their stories, their journeys, and through their stories to know that we're all the same. We're all connected, and that together as an industry, we can support, encourage, and lift each other up. So, your decision for today, what will it be? Will you decide to donate to your favorite organization or to one of Wendy's causes? Or will you email or just simply post on social media your gratitude to one of the show sponsors for their part in connecting all of us to each other? Do something today. Decide to do something that will not only make you feel good, but will let someone else know that you appreciate them. Have an excellent day. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at luannigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.